New Year's Eve, right? That's what it is, New Year's Eve. We're coming up on one of those cycle markers, right? We cycle through the months and the seasons, and somewhere back in time, they decided to call this one between December 31st and January 1, the end of the cycle of 1 year and the beginning of the cycle of the next year. We also cycle through decades and centuries. I think those decade ones mean more to us personally when we're doing the one that started with our birth date than they do in the overall calendar. So they're somewhat arbitrary dates, and yet we've given them great meaning. And this particular one that's coming up as we shift to a new year designation has become associated with fresh starts, with change, with making resolutions and doing something new and different in our lives. And I want to talk about that positive looking forward because, change and transformation, that's one of the things we're all about here at this center, right? Understanding that we are the beloved creations of that one that created all things, and that as that we contain that same creative power within ourselves. That's what we're about. Central part of our teaching. But in the midst of all of that looking forward, I want to be sure that we're giving due honor to where we've been, to where we are. And so in the midst of all that excitement and focus on the new, I'm doing this talk that I'm calling Honoring Was, Is, and Shall Be. In Science of Mind, we talk a lot about not being controlled by our past, not letting ourselves be limited in any way by what has gone before or what is current in this moment. But that doesn't mean that the past doesn't exist. And it doesn't mean that we can't be taking all possible lessons from that past. The roads that led us where we are, absolutely. Those are an important part of our history and what we learn from. Now, I don't want to get into a discussion about time today. There's a lot that we could argue and talk about. But the past, the present, and the future do actually all exist within the wholeness. We as humans happen to experience in one direction. We have a sequence that goes only one direction through time and only in a certain number of dimensions, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And we'll hold any other discussions elsewhere. One of the metaphors we use a lot is the acorn and the oak. And just in case you haven't seen that one recently, just a quick refresher. In the little acorn is the potential of the entire oak tree, already there when it drops off its mother tree, I'll call it. So in fact, each tree can create a forest, but let's just go with it. This acorn contains within it all the coding that is necessary for it to become the giant oak tree, in there already. And we could call that a desire or even an urge to be its whole self, but it has to go through a process. It can't jump immediately from acorn to 60-foot tall oak tree without passing through some certain stages. Now, as it goes, it can be impacted by the things it has within it. It knows to draw. It knows to draw from the soil and from the water and from the sunlight. It may have to struggle. It may have to fight with the sidewalk or a rock a little bit for space. It might have to find sun through some cover. It may have to fight for space in the ground, although as Reverend Peggy pointed out after the hurricanes came through, sometimes trees intertwine and they stand together and they're stronger together. So maybe it's also been strengthened by being, or saved by being in community with the others. So here's this big oak. It's out there, it's stretching for the sky and deeper roots. That's its goal this year. I want more sky space and I want deeper roots. Obviously, that oak tree is standing on its past. What's holding it up to stretch for the sky is the past that it experienced, the trunk that it has built over this time. So we need to think about our own past that same way, that we have built the strong foundation from which we get to stretch for the sky. If we hadn't gone through that exact past, if we hadn't walked the exact roads that we've been on, we wouldn't be where we are right now. Where we've arrived is exactly where we have come. And we need to honor that. It's the sacred truth of us, right? It's what we stand on. I did some reading, and I'll tell you more about it later, but about resolutions. And one of the things they talk about, if you want to set resolutions that are reasonable and that don't fail, you need to look to your past. You need to look back and see, what experience have I had with change as a whole? What experience have I had with this thing that I want to make different or change? What behaviors have I gotten in my own way with that I want to set up a way to get around those behaviors? So we need to view that past not as a limiting factor, not as a predictor of failure, for sure. That's what we often do. We look back there and go, oh, well, didn't work last time. There's no sense trying it again, right? So look at it as this huge information pool. We have all that experience, all those things we've done, all of the people we've talked to, all the books we've read. We have a vast pool of information at our fingertips. And what we may also have, if we pay closer attention, is lots of signs of success. Lots of notice that we're indeed very good at making shifts and changes in our life, that we have all the tools we need. I quit smoking after 20 years. It's a long time ago. It's been even longer than that since I quit. But how could I go back and say, now how can I use the tools I used then to accomplish some other shift in my life? I have a great relationship, a great marriage. How could I use what I know from that to improve other relationships in my life? We have a lot of signs of success in our life, too, when we look at it. So we need to honor those. And then there's the present. That's the only time we're actually in, right? And almost all of us, the New Thought philosophies, the Eastern philosophies, pretty much everybody out there now, talks a lot about living in the now moment, because it's really all we have. It's what we focus on. But now is so fleeting, I can't even point to it. It's gone by before. So no wonder we kind of tend to rock around in the future and the past a lot in our thoughts, because that's where we can live anywhere in our thoughts. We can only be in the now, but we can spend a lot of thought time elsewhere. Now, what you may not have ever thought of before is the now moment is a wide open field for gratitude. Even if what you're being grateful for is something that's already happened, or something you expect to happen or look forward to, the actual gratitude is right now. You only own that in the now moment. The same for all of our feelings and emotions. They're very much something of the now, whether we're thinking about been or coming. The feeling itself is right now. Unlike the oak tree, we can do something about this feedback loop, right? Our life, it's a feedback loop constantly. What's going on? We've got our basic series coming up. I decided I could actually fit most of our announcements into my talk. So coming up, starting next week, we have our 4-part series on the basics of science of mind. And probably you're likely to hear some things in that about the law of attraction and the law of mental equivalence. We have a lot of laws we talk about. For right now, I just want to get the point that when you look at your life as it is, and we'll call the present not just the now moment, but how it looks in general now, today, this week, because we can't talk about that fleeting moment, but we can talk about how things sort of are for us. That is the absolute information about what you're doing and thinking right now. It's perfect feedback. Exactly what you're experiencing comes from whatever you fed out into the universe to bring back to you. So we've got that information, and unlike the oak tree, we get to move around. We can change our position in that. We can go somewhere where the sun shines on us a little better. We can go somewhere where there's plenty of water. We have choices that we get to make about where we plant our present and move that into the future as we desire. And that is something that's somewhat unique to us as human beings, this absolute choice to react to the information that we're getting and shift how we stand in relation to the world. All the more reason to be grateful for the present. It informs us. It tells us exactly where we are, and what we can do about changing then comes from studying here, right? We've got it all. Oh, see. I'm going to be doing that in my sleep. All right. So the past is something we can learn from. The present is something we can be grateful for. And now let's move into that future, the New Year's resolutions. Some fun facts. And I got almost all of this from when I went out looking for resolutions and sticking with them. You get finance magazines, business magazines, and psychology magazines. That's where all the articles are. I would think New Thought would be writing, but I didn't find it. Doesn't get to the first pages of Google. Only 8 or 9% of people think that they actually accomplish the resolutions they made. 8 to 9%, depending on which study you looked at. 80% have failed by the second week of February. The good news is, though, that if you do decide to make some kind of resolution or goal or set an intention, a term I like better, you're 10 times more likely to accomplish it than someone that does not set an intention, a goal, or make a resolution. So, based on what I read, I wanted to share something that's directly out of a money magazine, because I thought this was just wonderful. By the way, I was reading our Costco magazine came the other day, and there was an article, and right down the edge were the 5 affirmations they wanted you to do. It said affirmation 1, affirmation 2, Costco magazine, talking about, I think, what to do in retirement maybe. Affirmations. Okay, this is from a magazine, Money-ish, which is part of the Market Watch group. And this is what their business coach says. Get clear on what you most desire and want from this year. It's vital that this comes from you, not what you should do or what someone else wants from you. I had already written on my notes, talk about the shoulds and not doing what you should do. All right. Secondly, know your why. If you want more money, why? It's never about the money. It's about what the experience is, lifestyle, or feeling that the money buys you. We talk about this in class. My own practitioner, when I state what I want, she comes back and says, and how will you feel when that happens? She will not treat for me until I tell her how I will feel when I get the result I've asked for. Part of the package. Next, write down your goals and intentions. I suggest you write them down as if they've already happened in present tense. It says that right here in the business magazine. What do we call those? We call them affirmations. We write them in foundations class. One of the first exercises we do. Then create a practice or a ritual where you literally visualize yourself already having, doing, experiencing the thing you desire. Law of attraction, right? If you want to do a ritual, we have one coming up. On January the 9th, we'll be out here on the courtyard with our burning bowl ceremony, where we get rid of what we want to get rid of, and then we write our new intentions for the year. I carry mine in my purse so that I can pop them out every now and then and see how I'm doing. She also proposes surrounding yourself with people that will support and encourage you to keep going. Hi. And to hire a coach or mentor to guide you on the most efficient and effective steps to get you to accomplish your goal. Make a decision to see every setback, door slammed in your face, or challenge as an opportunity. Come from a learning perspective. Know you are meant to succeed, and know that truly there is only one of you in the world. We know unique expressions of God, are we? You're here to live your best life, and the world wants to hear from you. We're not even talking anything different here anymore, right? This is straight out of the business magazine. A few other things from all that reading in the business I would add is having a system of accountability. That can be a buddy, a mentor, a coach. It can be a class. We have a couple of classes starting here. They're in the bulletin. There's flyers there. There's more flyers in the back. Classes is, Joe and I were just talking, it's where you get to know each other. It's where you bond. It's where you find out who you're hanging out with. Classes are great. Remember, it's a process. She mentioned that. Just, take a little setback. We fall into this trap of the idea that everything has to be perfect. And if we blow perfection by one little bit, we take the whole thing off the table. It's a process. It took us a while to get whatever it is we want to change going. It took us a while to form the habit or the behavior or whatever that we would like to see look different. Give it a little while to get better, but just keep plugging on it, right? Although it doesn't have to be slow, but sometimes it is. And limit the number of things you change. Don't fall into that all or nothing trap. I'm going to get up tomorrow morning 3 hours earlier than I've ever gotten up, exercise for 2 of those hours, meditate for 1 of them, and then have a healthy breakfast. Maybe not. Maybe not all of those things in the first, certainly not till the second week of February. All right. So what does Science Mind add to that we got? Everybody knows that stuff, right? It's in the business magazines. What do we add to it? I've got some quotes on the front of the bulletin that help me out a lot. And the first one starts off, it kind of goes back to our acorn, right? It is very important for us to realize that already involved, incarnated, and encircled within us must be the potential of everything we shall ever evolve into. It's all already here. But here's the important thing. So if that which is the cause of the possibility, that which is the absolute and the final and ultimate reality is involved in us or incarnate in us, there isn't just a part of it incarnated in us. All of it is there. So not only did we hold the potential to be what we are today, as soon as the seeds got together, we hold the potential of all within us because we are of that which is absolute in all. So our dreams can be bigger than somebody that doesn't know that. Our aspirations can be higher. Our understanding of what we bring to the table is very different when we understand that we come from that. And here's the other one. There are going to be changes in our lives from hour to hour, day to day. And we cannot escape them. It is the nature of the universe. Let us change, accept change, make the most of it, and capitalize on it. The action of the law never changes. But the direction of the action is always up to us. That's our freedom. Life can become a glorious adventure, increasingly filled with more of every good thing as we gradually or suddenly, doesn't have to be slow, it just often is, but it can be suddenly come to change our pattern of thinking so that it embraces more of those good things. So what we offer is that bigger idea of what's actually already in us, a bigger idea of what our full expression could actually look like, what we can be when we let ourselves be that. And we have the things to back you up. So we have ritual. We have our burning bowl. If you need more meditation, we have 2 things happening here in January. Manny G was back there earlier. He's off somewhere. Anyway, on the 2nd, sacred silence, sound, and movement. That's an opportunity to have just an experiential occasion of meditation and sound and the bowls. And then on Roque, you are on the 16th. Roque is doing his sound healing workshop. Take those opportunities to come and soften. We have the classes I mentioned. They have practices, they have knowledge, they have techniques, they have accountability. And we have this community to come together. I am going to set a goal for this center for 2019. Now, this is my goal. This is not the board's goal. This is not the Ministers Together goal. This is Cindy's goal that I have decided I want to see happen here. I've done what they said. In some ways, I have narrowed it down to one thing, but I think it's kind of all-encompassing. I haven't put the timelines and the accountabilities on it yet. I've got to do that, but here it is. My goal is for OCSL to shift from being reactive to being proactive, to make that shift to where we're planning far in advance and involving people. We're getting big enough. You know what happens when you get a little bigger? There's more toes to step on. You know, when you're little, all the major toes show up here and chit-chat among themselves. But as you get a little bigger, there's more toes to step on. It's harder to pull them together. So my goal is to have us be so far ahead and so proactive that we found all the stakeholders, talked to everybody, made sure who wants to be involved, who doesn't, but that whatever their interests and cares are, they're heard. That's something I want to see happen. And that's going to take a lot of communication, and we are a wonderful group of individuals. One thing, I bet you if you poll South Africa and Canada, you're going to find out all Science Mind churches are made up of very individuals, very unique, very much to ourselves, right? But we are also a community. And so we have to have the kind of communication that allows us to be our own unique, wonderful selves, but also talk to one another and come together on things. So that's my goal. And I have a goal, a personal goal for myself within this community. And that is I want to get to know you better. When I was in ministerial school, they told us that ministers are not supposed to be friends with people in the congregation because then you get jealous of who's friends with who's. And you know what? Poppycock. I have decided to just let that go. I have been dealing with that ever since they taught it to me whenever. I want to know you better. I want to make more connections about who's been in the Peace Corps and who's lived in these countries. And I mean, we've got wonderful stuff here. So starting in late January, I'm going to be making phone calls and setting hours, and we're going to get together, and we're going to have coffee or tea and talk. And I want to get to know you better. That's my personal goal. I would like to invite all of those of you who feel vested in this community to also make a goal of some sort about your resolution of how that you think is attainable about your relationship to this community for 2019. And tell me about it when we get together, or sooner, okay? Let's anchor that idea now by reading again the affirmation. I am on my perfect path through life. I am grateful for the roads I have traveled and the place that I have arrived. I step forth with confidence into my better yet to be. And so it is.